the most dominant stocks in the history of the US stock market. It's up tens of thousands of percent.
Even with that massive growth, it's the kind of company many retail investors often overlook.
Most people don't think of, $100+ billion companies as value plays, but they're often my favorite value plays because they have the highest tendency to recover.
But Nate Tucci with Prosperity Pub has a list of 3 mega cap stocks he turns into pure profit every day.
The way that I want to trade is have a whole bunch of scenarios where I win and very few scenarios where I lose.
Whether you're into short-term trades or long-term investments,
Typically averages a crazy 17% per year, which is like, 3 times the S&P.
these 3 big, boring names could make all the difference. Let's dive in. Nate, so great to have you on the channel today. Really excited about this topic because we talk so often on this channel about small cap growth stocks, those hidden gems that are going to be the next explosive growth story. But you have a different approach to investing, and that's looking at the tried and true big mega cap stocks and finding a lot of success in them. Talk about kind of why you are investing in more of these well-known companies.
Yeah, listen, there's nothing wrong with finding a hidden gem. Every once in a while, I'll put a small portion of my portfolio and try to hit one of those home runs because, like everyone else, I love to hit a home run trade when it happens. But I'm more of a systems guy. I like looking at things that I can kind of have a positive expectancy to play out over time. And I always tell my students the biggest advantage you're ever going to get is that the market generally goes up more than it goes down. We're very blessed that, we live in the United States and we have a US stock exchange that has absolutely crushed it over generation after generation. So I think that one of the things that traders kind of get a little too fancy doing is they go find a beaten down stock that's been, down for 10 years straight. And then they're, kind of fighting the most important advantage they could possibly have, which is trade stuff that generally goes up.
Yeah, it's a pretty simple, easy concept, but it works. Talk about the success you've had. These plays that we're going to look at today, this list that you have for us, they work for long-term investors, but you're trading them almost every day in the market.
Yeah, so I do have some long-term capital invested in these. One of them I recently put about $500,000 into. So full disclosure, this is not a totally non-biased view. I am in and I love these stocks. But I also trade them very actively. So kind of the thing that I will tell almost every one of my students across all my different strategies is if you want to trade the most successful way possible, then I try to find as many winning scenarios as I can. Now that sounds, again, super simplistic, but the idea is if you're trying to time up trades, buy the perfect option at the perfect time, get out at the perfect time, all those things kind of go right back into that previous conversation of now you're trying to time the market and have basically one scenario where you win and a whole bunch of scenarios where you lose. The way that I want to trade is have a whole bunch of scenarios where I win and very few scenarios where I lose. And if I can just do that, I'm going to feel pretty good most days when I enter a trade.
Some really solid advice already, and I'm excited to get into these 3 companies that you have for us today that are really solid plays, whether you're looking for a long-term investment or a solid trade that is proven to generally trend up and going to be successful for you. So let's get to that first name on your list of 3 mega companies you don't want to ignore.
Yeah, so the first one is the previous mega of them all, which is Apple. And that's now been overtaken by both Microsoft and NVIDIA. And I think Apple's just kind of got left in the shadows a little bit. And the reason I'm a big fan of Apple is not just because I like stocks that go up over time and Apple's the king of going up over time, but I actually think the narrative is completely wrong on Apple. So Apple's kind of got pushed to the sidelines. It's not a big AI stock. It's not going to develop any new AI revolutions like Microsoft is invested in, like NVIDIA is obviously at the core of. But the funny thing to me is that Apple has actually never been that company. Apple has never been a big innovator. It's something that most people get really wrong about Apple. So Apple did not invent tablets. They were super late on tablets. They just wrapped them up and designed them in a way that made them take over the world. They were incredibly late on wireless headphones, like not even close to the first, yet they dominate that space. Even the iPod, which people think that, Apple pioneered, nope, they were late on that too. Then they came out with iPod and took over. And you can just kind of go through the list. The smartphone, once again, way outpaced by everyone else on the smartphone. They came out and the iPhone dominated. So over and over and over again, Apple is actually late to the party, but then they put their marketing spin, they put their massive group of avid customers behind it, and they grab massive market share. And so I absolutely think the same thing will happen with AI, whether they take over another company and acquire them, or they just infuse a partnership with all of their products. People are still going to want the latest AI on their iPhone because everyone still loves their iPhone. And so I think that's going to happen with Apple once again, as it has over and over again throughout history.
That's a really unique look at this company, not as an innovator, but just as a really good executor of products that just is very successful, that people and customers love. I am curious to have you just talk about that elephant in the room with Apple, which is the downtrend right now. There are different analysts out there who are saying, stay away from Apple from now. They're behind in the race. It's not going to be trending up anytime soon. What's your take on that? Do you see them becoming, swinging to the positive again sooner rather than later?
Yeah, so Apple historically, when it has a negative year, averages 100% return over the next 3 years after a negative year. So with Apple being, beaten down, and like I said, everyone kind of kicking it to the shadows and saying it's not the king anymore, all of that, I just think they're undervaluing what it has always done, which is be a little bit behind the curve, then execute with their marketing strategy and their following and generate record profits, use their cash really well to acquire competitors or other things that can add on to their business model. And I expect we'll do the same thing. They also have some sneaky wins like Apple TV that's been doing better than anyone projected and some things like that. So I still think they're in an incredible position. And frankly, I don't mind the discount that we can get on Apple right now.
Yeah, it's a really good point, especially for those long-term investors that you're getting a discount on the stock right now. Would you mind sharing how you're trading Apple right now on a daily basis?
Okay, so for one, I like Apple as a long term investment. I don't mind playing it and potentially getting to all time highs in the next year or so. And frankly, I think it will. But the way that I really like to play it is actually trading it for income. So one of the great things about Apple is that it has incredible options volume. You can play it in a whole bunch of different ways. The way that I do it, which I won't get super in the weeds here today, is with what I call a line in the sand. Basically, I pick a price on Apple and I say, listen, I don't need Apple to go to all-time highs. As long as it stays above this price, I'm going to make 12% or 15% or 25% on my money. And then I just recycle those trades over and over again, find new positions. I actually built a tool that does it all for me, runs through the option chain and finds those opportunities automatically. So that's my favorite way to play Apple.
I love that's a very short version of really your system that you use. And if you are interested in learning how Nate is so successful in playing Apple and other stocks this way, scan the QR code right now or click the link we have for you in the description of this video to get a totally free look at Nate's training system. It's an offer just for our YouTube viewers today. It's not something he usually offers for free, but today it is. And Nate, you are such a great teacher. You can already tell that already. So thank you so much for sharing this with our viewers today. We're going to get into the short version of how you trade these stocks and the next two on your list too. But let's move on to that second company that's a really good mega company that still has a lot of profit potential for investors.
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite companies. It's actually my current biggest portfolio position right now, but it doesn't get the attention of the Apples and the Microsoft. So it's actually Progressive Insurance. Again, kind of a boring stock that no one thinks about. But if you go, extend your chart on a weekly chart or a monthly chart or whatever long time frame you can look at, Progressive is one of the most dominant stocks in the history of the US stock market. It's up tens of thousands of percent. And it's because Progressive makes money in almost every condition. If you think about it, most, auto insurers and things like that, they're actually mandated by government law. So whether you're in, a depression or anything else, people are paying their insurance bill. And so Progressive, if you go look at 2008 or 2000, or even our recent flush in 2022, you'll see Progressive has much lower drawdowns and much quicker recoveries than almost any stock out there. And right now, once again, they're beaten down. They've gotten, between the Texas floods and other events, people are a little bit worried about their exposure. But Progressive has an incredible history of coming out on top, minimizing their exposure, and producing record profits on a consistent basis. They just beat earnings again, as they almost always do. And so Progressive, which typically averages a crazy 17% per year annual return over the entire history of the stock, which is like 3 times the S&P, they're negative this year. And so I think they're an incredible rebound play, and I expect them to continue to dominate like they almost always do.
Yeah, this is a company we've definitely not talked about on the channel before, but it's a name that everybody knows. Can we talk a little bit more about the insurance sector in general and why Progressive is the name in this sector that you would choose? But overall, do you expect to see a better rebound for most of the insurance sector?
In general, actually, the insurance sector is crazy good. Most people, again, don't think about it. They're one of the best outperforming sectors in the entire stock market over decades and decades. And it's because of what I just said. Their cash flow is so consistent. And frankly, as we all get very frustrated with, they've gotten pretty good at not paying out when they don't have to. And so as a customer, I'm not a fan, but as an investor, absolutely love the insurance companies, and a lot of them have done really well. Now, I think Progressive is the best of the best. They have the best track record. They have, the most expansive coverage on different types of policies that, make that cash flow really consistent. Their margins are among the best. And they also have really great liquidity. So again, if you want to trade options and kind of get creative on the way that you want to generate cash flow, Progressive is a top-notch stock that has great liquidity and you can take full advantage of. So for all those reasons, it's at the very top of my list. And like I just said, it's also pulled back way deeper than I think it should have so far this year. And so from a value standpoint, I mean, again, most people don't think of 100+ billion-dollar companies as value plays, but they're often my favorite value plays because they have the highest tendency to recover.
Yeah, very good point, especially for long-term investors. Again, I want you to share kind of your specialty, and that's looking at how to trade Progressive. What's your strategy with this one?
So actually exactly the same thing. I like trading it for income. I like finding opportunities where I can get in, and Progressive actually doesn't even have to do anything to pay me. So if you guys go through the tutorial, one of the things you'll hear me say a whole bunch is that I don't even care if the stock goes up. It can go sideways. It can actually even go down a little bit, and I'll still be in line to do a 12% or a 15 or a 25% return because of the structure of the trade. So I won't geek out on you too much, but I love trade structures as much as I actually love stocks themselves. And that's what, this strategy and that tool is all about, kind of getting you into a structure of a trade that pays out, frankly, way more than it should for a stock that does a whole lot of nothing over the course you're holding it. And if it goes up, that's great too. Then we kind of double dip on the upside plus the income side.
Interesting. And I love that you say you can make profit from boring stocks like Progressive, even if they're not doing anything. So that's interesting. We're going to move on to your third play that is anything but boring. This last company is not a boring stock.
No, yeah, the last one definitely not boring. And it's actually, I have a little bit of a different view on it than the first two. So the last one is our friend Tesla, which, like you said, anything but boring, whether it's on the technology side or the social media side, getting in fights with the president or anything in between. It has an amazing way of being in the headlines, but it also has an amazing way of taking deep, deep corrections and then recovering to all-time highs. And so Tesla has had over 50% corrections in, the last 20 years. And it has one thing in common. It always makes all-time highs after those massive deep corrections. And if a stock has a 50% drawdown, in order to get to all-time highs, it has to make 100% move from there. And so it's, again, basic math. If a stock goes from $100 to $50, it now has to gain 50 or 100% just to get back to where it was before. But you don't often think about it in those terms. And so with Tesla, you kind of double that drawdown and think, okay, now it has 100% ROI potential just to get back to all-time highs, which it historically has done over and over again.
I think there's so much to follow up with on this one. And we will talk about the trading play, which is a lot of traders really like Tesla because of all those moves. But I want to talk to those long-term investors first. When you're looking at Tesla and you see all of these ups and downs, all of the volatility, it can be kind of a scary long-term hold. Do you recommend this as a long-term hold?
So definitely don't hold Tesla with the same amount of capital I would, one of my favorite boring stocks like Progressive. But I actually do think that the history and the growth behind Tesla is phenomenal. It's one of those things where you have to gauge how much risk and kind of how you want to handle those peaks and valleys. But for me, Tesla has so many potential catalysts to make it move in your favor that risk reward makes sense to me. In other words, if Tesla just, does a new rollout on a vehicle, they'll probably have incredible upside as a catalyst. If the robots take off, they're going to be probably the most valuable stock in the world in the next couple of years if that happens. If Elon has some success with this crazy new political party he wants, that will probably, so it's like there's so many different ways that Tesla can get to the finish line, in my view, that I think it's a risk reward that makes sense.
Yeah, that's great advice for long-term investors on how to work with Tesla. What about trading Tesla? You have to have, I imagine, a different strategy for day trades on Tesla versus Progressive.
Okay, so one of the great things about Tesla is that volatility that you were just talking about. So if you understand options, and by the way, if you go through the tool and the training, I think you'll have a really great understanding of how this works, that the market makers, the people who price those options, have to price them based on how the stock moves, right? So they don't price, the S&P, which is rarely going to move over 1%, the same way they price Tesla, which moves 3 and 4 and 5% all the time. Well, that's actually a sneaky advantage because once again, if you apply income to that, now you can get these big, what I call cushion trades. What that basically means is you can be wrong on Tesla and still make money. So, for example, I put a trade on just 2 weeks ago where Tesla could actually drop 12% on the underlying stock and the trade would still win, even though it was a net bullish trade. So, if it went down 12%, I would win. If it went down 5%, I would win. But if it went up, I would also win. So, I had all that cushion to work with. And that's one of the benefits of a volatile stock like Tesla if you understand and know how to structure those options.
Such good advice. And like you said, a lot to learn if you've not traded options before or worked in those. You can learn a lot from Nate. Nate, you are such a good teacher. I so appreciate your time today going over these stocks and reminding investors not to ignore some of the bigger, maybe boring names that are out there because there's still some profits to be made. Again, you can click the link we have in the description of this video if you do want to learn more from Nate and the program that he has for you. It's a really great information at Prosperity Pub. Nate, thanks again for your time. And thank you, viewers, for watching today. Let us know what you think about these big, boring plays. And if you have other really mega cap names out there that have been huge players for your portfolio that continue to help you build wealth over time, we'd love to hear your comments too. Thanks again for watching, everyone. And as always, happy investing.